All right, good afternoon. Zachary Payne, head of the programs for the Leader Development COI and Vice Chair. Get to work with Roland as part of the COI, and super excited about today's presentation. It's a cool topic, one that I'm digging into and learning more about as we speak, because we are working with Vhance Valencia. So like some of you, I'm sure talent optimization expert, Vhance Valencia has seen the world of work change over the years, especially over the last 2 years with COVID impacts, the telework environment, the whole attitude about remote work, and how do leaders like us navigate this new world of work, and have we been successful? Vhance is a retired Air Force civil engineer with 21 years of experience and the owner of Valencia Consulting, which is a single-member consulting practice specializing in business and process improvement through building high-performing teams. He holds a PhD in systems engineering from the Air Force Institute of Technology and was a commander twice for 2 civil engineer squadrons. During his time there, he found a penchant for leading change and improving systems throughout his military career. One of his secrets has been understanding himself and his team's behavioral preferences to get the best performance he can from the group. Today, he's going to share a little bit about talent optimization as a framework that you can use as well on your own journey in building your own high-performing team. He is a registered professional engineer, certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and a certified partner consultant with the Predictive Index, the world leader in applying behavioral assessments to the world of work. His consulting practice will help you with leadership development, increased employee engagement, and decreased team turnover. And he's doing that, as I mentioned, for Matrix Design Group on a small scale right now, but with visions of helping our overall firm. And so without further ado, over to you, Vhance.
Hey, thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being my hype man. And I bring that up because at some point, we're going to show everybody on the executive committee and their behavioral profiles and preferences. And, you'll see why, being the hype man is appropriate, is what I think is an appropriate title for Zach. So, hey, I appreciate the intro. And then for everybody that's on the call, I appreciate you guys being on the call, because it's such a small and intimate group right now. If you've got any questions along the way as we're going through the framework of talent optimization, and then the scientific framework which it's built on, it's called the competing values framework. If you've got any questions as I'm demoing, talking about it and then demoing how it operates, just come off a mute and feel free to interrupt me. Like Zach said, I'm Vhance Valencia, PhD and professional engineer, and yes, I'm excited to be presenting to this community of interest through SAME. So today, what we're going to talk about are the 3 things every leader must know to lead effectively today. And so we're going to focus on the 3 things. At the end of it, it's going to be a pretty simple formula that you guys will, hopefully understand and have that framework in the back of your mind as you're continuing to develop yourself, or maybe even develop folks that work for you or you're actively mentoring. So here's the agenda for this afternoon. I've got an hour with you guys, so I'll keep track of the time and make sure that we end with plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So after the introduction, I'll go over just a quick short story with regards to teamwork and team building. We'll talk through the 3 things that every leader must know, and along the way, we'll bounce back and forth between a couple of screens, because I'm using the Leadership Development Community of Interest Executive Committee as, I guess, kind of a case study to show you how the world of work, how they fit into their individual worlds of work, how they come together as a team, and then the strategy. I've got a few resources to share with you guys at the end, and then we'll do questions and answers at the end as well. So hopefully that's a good enough agenda for you guys for the December/Christmas Christmas webinar. So short story. If anybody has seen Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of Misfit Toys, correct me if I got the story wrong, but the Island of Misfit Toys is this place that Santa takes the toys that don't have the ideal child just yet, and he sticks them on this island as kind of a holding area until the right kid comes along and they have a perfect match. And part of the story is, I think it's the Great Toy Stealer, I think was his title. He comes along and he kidnaps the toys, and one toy gets lost at sea. It's Charlie the Jack in the Box, or Charlie in the Box. And this band of misfits has to come together to not only save Charlie, but then foil the Great Stealer's plans to ruin Christmas for all the kids, across the world. And oftentimes the story feels like it should, it resonates with me because oftentimes I have gone into a job as the leader and I get who I get, right? I get this, this band of, what could be known as misfits. And we have this objective, and we have to go through and figure out how to achieve the goal. But we're a collection of misfits. What I want to show today is that you don't have to be a collection of misfits. If you can understand yourself and understand your team, that goes a long way in helping achieve the strategic goals that you've got for your organization, whether it's business, a government org, or a volunteer organization like the Leadership Development Community of Interest. So hopefully today you guys will get some insight into the idea of talent optimization and the journey that we all go along as leaders takes lots of twists and turns. And so we all, leaders definitely aren't born, we're all made, and we all start at the bottom of the mountain looking up to see how are we going to reach the top, the pinnacle, to be that boss that people want to follow, or people want to be mentored by. And our journey takes lots of twists and turns, and along the way to climb that mountain, we need all sorts of tools, tactics, and techniques. And today I want to show you guys one particular tool that you can use in your own leader journey. And like Zach introed, I used behavioral preferences or personality assessments as a way to understand not just me, but the people around me, to help me become a better leader for them. One framework that I recently learned about, it's called the Competing Values Framework. We call it the World of Work, as as I consult through the Predictive Index, which is the company that allows me to use their software to help other companies. The underlying scientific, well-documented, well-researched framework is the Competing Values Framework. And I want to start there because it's important to understand that this thing that I'm showing you, it's not a gimmick. It's not a tool. It's actually based in science, and there's thousands of companies across the world that use some version of the Competing Values Framework. And so it's called Competing Values because there's the values on the values that we espouse in this framework, it compete at a couple of different levels. At its core, there's two axes, the vertical and the horizontal axes. And so on one axis, you have an orientation towards order, or an orientation towards ambiguity. And so that's the vertical axis here. And so if you tend to want order in your processes and systems, or stability and control, you're going to live in an area where processes and systems are important, or results and discipline are important. versus if you're better with dealing with ambiguity and you need individuality and flexibility. The world of work where you're going to reside is going to be up here, whether it's teamwork or innovation and agility. So those two aspects compete, right? They're opposites. You have order and stability, and then individuality and flexibility. And then the other orientation where values compete is on the horizontal axis, where you have an orientation towards internal maintenance or external positioning. And what I mean by internal maintenance is that as a person that resides on this side of the quadrant, you're looking inward at yourself, you're looking inward to your team, how well do they get along, inward in your company as to what are the processes we need to optimize so that the team can perform better, versus external positioning where you're looking out and you are naturally competitive. And you're looking and you're benchmarking against other teams or other companies. And so when we put those four attributes together, the four opposite ends of these two axes, you get these four quadrants. Innovation and agility results in discipline, processes and systems, and then teamwork and employee engagement. So that's the internal versus external orientation, and the stability and ambiguity orientation. That's one aspect of competing values. And then the other aspect of competing values is the diagonals of these quadrants. And so when you have somebody that resides in the world of teamwork and employee engagement versus somebody that resides in the work of results and discipline, their natural abilities, their natural way of thinking, their natural tendencies to do work are gonna conflict. And the same for innovation and processes. Folks that reside in the area of innovation and agility have a hard time working in processes and systems. And one story that I like to share often is a story of Elon Musk as he's trying to get Tesla off the ground. Elon Musk is a guy that resides squarely in innovation and agility. But in the early days of Tesla, he knew that he needed to get processes and systems in place so that he can bring those electric vehicles to market and bring them to scale. And what he ended up doing was he ended up taking on that work. He ended up taking on the role and living in processes and systems for about 6 months is what I read in the article. And one of the quotes that sticks with me in that article was that it was a living hell for him. It was a personal hell for him. So it was a very difficult time that he had in living in process and systems. Now, did he do it? Did he flex into this quadrant and was successful? Yeah, absolutely. But this goes to show that understanding where you reside naturally and where your team resides naturally goes a long way in getting the best kind of work out of them, or keeping them engaged and I guess satisfied at work. So the first thing that you need to know as a leader is, who are you as a leader? How do you lead? What are your strengths? What are your different blind spots? And how do you navigate all of those things? And so I'm going to switch applications now and show you the world of work that the leadership development or the leader development COI lives in. And as you can see here, you've got innovation and agility, results in discipline, process and precision, and teamwork and employee experience, just like the model that I showed you. And Roland, if you can come off of mute, we're gonna show Roland the leader, because that's the first element of understanding who you are, is understanding yourself. And so 2 weeks ago, I sent a behavioral assessment to each of the leaders in the leader development COI and asked them to take the assessment. And their results are shown here, and I'll get to everybody's results, but what we know about Roland now is that his reference profile is collaborator. And inside of talent optimization, we have 17 different kinds of reference profiles. If you've taken something like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the MBTI, very similar to that personality assessment, the difference is this is only concerned, or this model, the framework, is concerned about work, it's concerned about business. It doesn't tell you about, hey, this is how you lead, love, learn. It tells you this is how you prefer to work. And what we know about Roland is that as a collaborator, he's friendly, understanding, and willing, and a willing and patient team player. And so we know also that he's understanding, collaborative, people-oriented, patient with routines. And his preferred work style is this. He's private, serious, introspective, focused, and persistent, and constantly pursues goals in a calm, methodical manner. Roland, of the 6 things that I named off here, do any of them resonate with you?
They do, and one thing that kind of jumped off the page is I've always had the mental model of introvert versus extrovert, and only relatively recently have I learned that it's a spectrum, and I think I started off as an extrovert, and when I became a senior officer, when I was wearing a uniform, at some point I became an introvert. But this shows that, right? It shows that I could be people-oriented and social, but still be private and introspective. And so that kind of jumped off the page at me as you and I were talking recently.
Yeah,
and the other things are also true, but that was the one that I kind of bumped on.
And so one of the things that I think this highlights is that you along the way, right, visualize going up that mountain and taking a particular path, but then, realizing that there's another path that's different. You along the way have noticed, hey, I am naturally attuned to working in a particular style, but work requires me to be, X, right? And so you've learned that you have had to make adjustments in your leadership style and your preferred work style in order to be a success at your work. Right? That's would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely, yeah.
Some places that sometimes folks are not as keen to talk about are some of their potential caution areas. So things like having difficulty making unpopular decisions, or not having great follow through with details, and sometimes appearing to be too casual. Are any of these 3 things, highly resonant with you?
Well, they're all true. And given the hat that I wore at the very beginning here, certainly the third bullet is true. But I would actually say that when we talked about this, the one that bumped on me is the difficulty making unpopular decisions. I've always known about myself that I've been conflict averse, and I've been lucky that I've been able to kind of maneuver things so that that I avoid conflict. But there have been instances where I've recognized that about myself, and yeah, it's something that I know and I continually work on. And it's not in a fitness report somewhere, but it's in a debriefing at some points. If I go through my my leadership file, I can pull out when Commander Fran Castaldo told that about myself.
Here's another thing about you that we didn't talk about the other day, that you as a manager and as the team lead, you remain steady and supportive during times of instability. And I think the leadership COI is going through a little bit of instability now, because as I'm learning about the executive committee, there's some turnover in a few areas, right? And so I think your personality type, you know that you're naturally inclined to be that steady, supportive role, and that is will be of great value to the team as you're working through the strategy that you put forth. So what I'd like to do is actually bring on somebody. Eric, did you see if Eric kind of came on to the call? Is Eric on the call?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay. Yeah, so Eric, I'm bringing you on. I pulled up your pin in the software because you are, and when you see the rest of the team, you are the most opposite from Roland, and your type is the analyzer type, and I'm very familiar with your type because that is my type. Some of your strengths here are that you're disciplined, strong on execution, innovative, and self-motivated, data-driven, and analytical. What I want to do though is get over here, and I want to bring up this relationship guide, and I want to talk through some things with between the two of you guys. Between the two of you, have there been any kind of not necessarily friction points, but some difficulties in working together?
No, it's interesting. I was reading the whole thing. It's pretty good. One of the things I think at our level, we recognize people are different, right? And so I think with that, there's a tremendous amount of, I think, grace, especially for a guy like me, because I am, as you know, I'm very direct,
Yeah.
right? I'm not as like Roland, I think, is much better in the sense of recognizing people's feelings and so forth. I'm more of the steamroller guy, and so but I think we recognize that we are different, with different strengths and then weaknesses as well. And so there's really not been, I wouldn't say friction, other than I think a recognition that I'll just use me as an example. When I am very direct, I think Roland is very good at coming back around and recognizing the people part of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. One story I will share with being a fellow analyzer is that I recognized pretty early on that my conversation, I need to watch out with the way that I spoke with folks, because my conversations tended to be very transactional. One case in point, when I was a young captain working on a staff, one of my coworkers came up to me and said, "Hey, watch out how you talk with Miss Torres, because she said that you only talk to her when you need something." And I was like, "True." But as a leader, I'm glad that somebody pointed that out to me, because for her, she needed more conversations around her and her feelings and things going on, and a less transactional kind of conversation. So I'm glad that the models resonated with you as well, Eric, and that you bring to the forefront that, hey, as a leadership team and as senior folks, as more senior folks, you understand that everybody, yeah, absolutely, you understand everybody's different, and you make adjustments as to how to interact with folks. And so, I
think Mike brings up a good point in the chat related. I mean, we are a volunteer organization, so we kind of recognize that we're here on our own time, and that kind of changes a little bit of the dynamic. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about leadership. And I remember when I was a commander, people would have to tell me, stop thinking out loud, because they were taking that as a command, right, as direction, and it wasn't. But that's how I come across, right? I'm thinking out loud, not in the sense of direction, but more in the sense of I was thinking, we were brainstorming, they were thinking I was giving them direction, and because of my communication style, right? And so I'd always have to tell them, like, no, you guys got to push back. You got to push back on me. I know how I come across.
Yeah, but it makes them uncomfortable. That's a classic story of leadership in the military. And sometimes, and I'm glad that you emphasize that they need to push back, but because that puts them in a very uncomfortable position, right? Pushing back against the boss
It does.
might be hard for them.
Yeah. And so then it's a matter of, okay, when they do push back, what's my reaction, right? So now I had to be careful about my reaction when they push back. And so anyway, yeah, but I do like your model. I mean, as I went through and I've read through, all the documents you sent to me, you're spot on with me.
Yeah.
And I think leaders, when we reckon, this is so important, that why in the leader development program that we start off with, understanding yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Once you understand yourself, then I'm not asking you to change, but just the recognition alone will allow you to be a better leader.
Yep. Yeah. So that one, who am I as a leader? That goes towards self-awareness. And so the next thing that I'd like to talk about is the second aspect, which is like, who's on my team? And we explored a little bit about who's on the team by bringing you in, Eric, compared to Roland. The questions here is it's just knowing how do your team goes about their work, how best do they communicate, how do they take action, their strengths and blind spots, and how do they interact? How do they interact together? And so as we're talking about the individual aspects and what the model can do to bring out individuality, one of the unique things that we're able to do with this software is now understand the team. So like the 17 reference profiles, like an individual that has a personality, when you have a collection of folks that come together, they have their own personality. And so I'm going to switch back to the software here. And I'm going to navigate back to the team because I'm going to show you guys what your team makeup is. And so whereas we had the pins for Roland and Eric, here was Roland, Eric's over here. This is now the rest of the team and how they reside. And so you've got kind of an even split here on the team as far as folks living in the teamwork and employee experience kind of world, and folks that live in results and discipline. And then you've got Zach way out here in innovation and agility. And I think he dropped off the call, but earlier in the call, I was calling Zach, my hype man, because he kind of came up with this idea of me kind of presenting this. I'm sorry, I did not, hang on. Yeah, I did not switch. Okay, you should now see the my web browser. Like I said, an even split between teamwork and employee experience and results and discipline, and then Zach's way out here in innovation and agility. And so, what I'm showing here is that you don't have misfits on the team. What you have, rather than calling them misfits, you call them balancers, because now all of a sudden, whereas these folks are really good with morale and employee engagement, and these folks are really hard drivers looking at getting external results, you now have a person here that can do or think naturally in the innovation and agility space. And so it's important to recognize if somebody thinks differently or acts differently from the rest of the team, they bring balance. They bring balance to the team. To my earlier point of team type, so whereas there's 17 different reference profiles, what we know in competing values framework, when you have teams, there are 9 different what we call team types. And the team that the executive committee is on is called an adapting team. And there's flexibility and versatility, and the team is equipped for being to deal with change. And so some of the strengths is that, hey, we've got a wide variety of personalities on the team, and so whatever business initiative gets thrown at us, we can, we as a team can react appropriately because folks can stretch into and out of different areas. And so so flexibility is a key strength. Now, some of the potential caution areas though for the team is that, hey, you're a jack of all trades and a master of none. And if your initiatives are too kind of spread out, you may struggle to do, one thing particularly well. And without your group makeup being all that clearly defined, again, you may struggle at focusing on, one or two key objectives. And then there's an issue of resource allocation. If those objectives, if you're trying to chase, I guess, too many rabbits. Somebody on the team other than Roland or Eric, can you guys come off a mute and tell me how does this resonate with you, having worked with this group of people for some time, that the team is flexible, versatile, and equipped for change?
Hey, Vance, it's Mike there. I guess I will start, since I've kind of been on the team since the very beginning, and I think flexible and versatile. I think really describes the entire team, because we were given a task to start from nothing to what we have, and I think that clearly required some flexibility, versatility, and equipped for change. And we were making up this program as we went along, and sometimes just a week ahead of giving a presentation or something. So I think it's a great descriptor, and it's great to see that there's folks from different quadrants, because I think that's what ultimately allowed success, because we kind of balanced to get to a good end state. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. And the neat thing is, like, we were so spread. The team is so spread out across these quadrants. I highlighted, as I was having, preparing with Roland, hey, we've got a gap here in process and precision. And later on, I'll show you that one of the objectives that Roland has set forth for the team is a process and precision. And so what we know within the competing values framework is that if somebody resides in an adjacent quadrant, you can ask them to stretch into that quadrant, and you're not going to get the issue, the Elon Musk issue, or the Zach Payne issue of having somebody from innovation and agility stretch into a process and precision role. And that's key in knowing who your team, that's key, because you need to know who your team is, what they're naturally good at, and then what they can naturally stretch into. Another solution would be to find somebody that lives in the process and precision world and bring them into the executive committee so that they can help naturally lead those kinds of initiatives. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The adapting team is a great makeup for the things that you guys have been asked to do over the last couple of years, because it's a very brand new program, and there's a lot of as we know, making things up as you go along. So I think that's a great team, great team makeup to have as you guys are moving forward with the leader development program. So I talked about the team type. You guys are an adapting team. I'm going to switch back now to the presentation. The third thing that you need to know is what's the work the team needs to do, right? So is the work related to one of the four quadrants of teamwork, innovation, process, producing, or some combination of the above? And so as Roland and I were prepping, I asked him, let's explore what those objectives are. And Roland, if you can come off of mute, we're gonna go back through and let's outline those objectives. And so one of the objectives was this one here: promote from within to foster a culture of engagement and professional development. So could you kind of share with folks a little bit of the rationale behind choosing this particular objective?
Yeah. So the way I viewed these potential objectives, because it was an exercise where we picked from a list of them. I kind of looked at the entire society, the tens of thousands of members, and us as a leadership executive committee within leader development, and we want to engage those potential customers, those tens of thousands of people out there in the society who want to do leader development activities, but they don't know how. They don't know that there's a mentoring toolkit out there. They don't know that there's a leader development program. And so that's what I, in this mental model that I went through as I picked some of these objectives. So we want to engage with those folks and help them professionally develop, but also help us professionally develop within our executive committee, so that we get graduates from the leader development program come in and take leadership positions, either as instructors in the LDP or vice chairs in the community of interest, or other leadership positions throughout the society.
Okay. And then this one here, you also chose foster and cultivate creativity or a new vision for the company. So a little bit in the innovation and agility space. What did you want to, was there anything you wanted to say about this particular objective?
Yeah, so we're trying to turn a corner, right? We've spent the last couple of years really focused inward, getting the curriculum set for the leader development program, figuring out our webinar programming, and how we work with the posts that have post-level leader development programs. But now we want to look outward and be really creative about how we reach out to the rest of the society and other organizations, other like-minded organizations around the country, other engineer organizations who, or other leader development organizations like the different chambers of commerce around the country who have leader development programs for their local communities. So be really creative about what leader development looks and feels like for the society.
And then with regards to with regards to increasing that engagement, you also chose this one here because you want to increase employee engagement to improve productivity and retention. Talk to me about your productivity and retention, or actually maybe retention goals.
Yeah, so we want more people to be involved in the COI, attending webinars or applying for the leader development program, or reaching out to Amelia or other folks who in our mentor advisory group, and asking them questions about, hey, I want to be a mentor, but here at my post, and I'm not quite sure how we do it. So that's the engagement that we're talking about, so that we're more effective at reaching out and talking to those folks, and keeping them on, right? So once our leader development program candidates graduate at JETSI, they don't just go out into the cold and don't do anything. They continue staying with us, like Julie and Zach and lots of other folks who continue working with us and continue finding volunteer opportunities to work in some capacity.
And then another one here is another goal that you have is in the process and precision, which is about implementing structures and procedures to handle the needs of the growing workforce, or we should say growing membership. Any thought, just real quickly, any thoughts here with that particular goal?
Yeah, so again, we've been focused inward for the past couple of years and building the train as we're riding down the tracks. Now we have time to stop and take a deep breath and codify a lot of the things that we've been doing, looking at the calendar and saying, okay, well, every year on December 1st, we got to start thinking about what presentations we may or may not want to give at JETSI. Every year in the beginning of the calendar year, we want to start thinking about about our succession program, who's who's been in their vice chair position for a while and who do we think is a good candidate to ask about whether or not they'd be interested in stepping in. Those kinds of things we want to be more deliberate about instead of, especially the first year, running around with our hair on fire, meeting every week just to keep in front of the unforgiving calendar of the LDP, making sure that we had speakers lined up and things like that.
And then the last two goals live in results and discipline. So invest in our sales team or marketing team to help grow revenue, and then drive growth through increased sales or improved customer retention. Those two are really about growth, right? So ignore the. I think we talked a little bit about ignoring the sales and marketing aspects. Can you talk a little bit about the growth goals that you've got for the LD program?
Yeah, it's not. You're exactly right. It's not necessarily growth in terms of revenue per se. It's growth in eyeballs. It's growth in attendance. We joked around the other day when we were talking about Jetsy and how many folks we had in the COI meeting at the Small Business Conference last month in Nashville. And we had a handful of people who got up early, even though the night before we were in Nashville, and there's lots of fun things to do in Nashville. And a lot of people, you could tell that they had been out late the night before, but they still got up at 7:30. But those are the kinds of things that we want to address. We want to increase our reach. We want to have more people attend. We want to have more people ask questions about mentoring, or we want to see another post raise their hand and start a leader development program at their level. So those are the kinds of things that we're talking about when we talk about growth.
Okay, so we've got those objectives. We highlighted 6 objectives, and that's what these lines are around. The 6 objectives that you've got are spread out across each of the 4 different quadrants. And when you balance the team type, when you compare the team type to the objectives, what we now know is that you're an adapting team pursuing a balancing strategy. And so the balancing strategy seeks to acquire new customers and at the same time build staff engagement. And that shows in the world of work where you've got 2 elements of your strategy that reside in the world of results and discipline, and 2 elements of your strategy that reside in teamwork and employee experience. The reason why we focus in on that is because that's where the focus lies, and then you also have goals now that are aligned in the innovation and agility space, and then the process and precision space. And so what we can do is, there's an element here where we talk about takeaways and how best to leverage the team type that you have to achieve the goals that you set for the team. So to improve your team's work style, we here are 3 suggestions about celebrating team wins, rewarding loyalty and deepening client relationships, and then to build a culture to reach your goals. Here are 3 suggestions about balancing employee and customer satisfaction, building an appreciation for competition, and then building an appreciation for relationships. Can you talk to me about any of the initiatives that you've got going on right now that go after either improving the team's work style or building that culture needed to reach your goals?
Well, I'll start, and we'll see if anyone else wants to chime in. And maybe it's just the timing of the discussion, but SAME National's deadline for awards submission is coming up. And so a bunch of different organizations, posts, COIs, and other folks have started or have continued spitballing about different people and different teams who should be nominated for awards. So I don't think I'm saying anything that's a surprise here, but a handful of us have talked about nominating the folks who worked on the engineering grant for outreach to STEM outreach to Native and indigenous communities around the country. That group, we want to celebrate that win. We want to put some tangible award above and beyond the accolades that they hear routinely from leaders around the society. So there are things like that, and a few other folks that we want to think about in terms of recognizing, either with formal awards or informal recognition. And that might just be because the awards timing is coming up, but that's the first thing that kind of jumped off the page at me.
But with regards to timing, I think it's great that you over the last couple of months, you and the rest of the team over the last couple of months have been thinking about this, because it's basically the end of the year, right? And 2023 is just 2 or 3 weeks away. And so, setting that strategy or having those goals in mind for 23, now is the perfect time to do it, because we've got the new year coming up, and it's a perfect time to kind of reset. So thanks for sharing some of the things that you're doing or have done with regards to objectives, and then responding to how potentially you could make the team a better place to work as a volunteer organization. Before I move away from this software demo, did anyone else on the team have anything that they wanted to bring up with regards to the objectives that Roland has set, or any of these suggestions or takeaways moving into 2023? Okay, nothing heard. I'm going to go ahead. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to switch back now to the presentation. And so we explored what the team needs to do, and this is the basic formula for what we ended up going through today in the last hour. We understood the individual, we understood you, we understood others on the team, and then we understood the work that needed to get done by the team. And if you're able to navigate this equation of you plus others plus work, that's the key to getting the results that you're after as a leader. And those are the 3 things that you need to know as a leadership. It's a very simple equation. Understand yourself, get a little bit of self-awareness, get some awareness of those who are on your team, and then have goals or set objectives, or know what the strategy is that you're going after in order to be able to get results for your team. What I do is the framework called talent optimization. What I demonstrated was just one element of this entire framework. We start with this thing called business strategy, and the end goal, that the work that I do is really helping companies get after business results by dealing with all the stuff in the middle. And all the stuff in the middle are your people. And one thing that I talk about are, fighting the 4 forces of disengagement. And the 4 forces of disengagement are up in that purple box. Sometimes you might not have the right fit for the employee. The right job fit for the employee. The manager and the employee might not mesh well together. That employee might be a misfit on the team, or you just might not have the right culture set up in your company that fits for the employee, or worse, you don't know the culture in your company, and so you don't know what kind of changes that you need to make. In talent optimization, we address these 4 forces of disengagement with different what we call aptitudes or skills for a company. Does the company know how to do good team design? Can they inspire the employees that they have now, the talent that they have now? Do they have a good hiring process in that they're able to attract and keep the best recruits out on the field? And then for those of us that were in the military, every year we took a climate assessment survey. And that's one aspect of the work that I do, is I help diagnose the climate or the culture at a particular company. So today, I was able to walk the executive committee, and thanks for spending an hour with me going through one element of the talent optimization framework. And hopefully you learned a little bit about the competing values framework, which again is the science and the research behind the work that we do with talent optimization. So this is my next to last slide. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody on the executive committee for taking the time on taking the behavioral assessment, to Janine and Zach for helping me pull this webinar along. If any of this stuff was intriguing to you, I've got my contact information here. You can email me or send me a text message, and we can set up a time for you to learn more about the work that I do as a talent optimizer, as a partner with the predictive index. And then if you've got your smartphone, and actually I'm going to drop the link into the chat, this gets you to a section of my webpage where I've got some resources available for you. And so it's just three reports from the predictive index. And then for those of you that don't have a phone, I'm grabbing this now, and I'm just going to drop this into the chat so that you can, let's see. Let's try this again. There we go. So that you can grab those resources and use them for your journey as a leader, to make you a better leader for the work that you do. So yeah, again, if you want to learn more about the work that I do, this is my contact information. And then I'm going to pause here for any questions and answers that might come from anybody listening out there. We've got just a few minutes for any questions. So if anybody wanted to drop anything in the chat or just come off of mute and ask your question, happy to take it to kind of close out the session.
Hey Vance, it's Mike. I get, as you know, I did PI a while ago, but I think I haven't seen the new advances of kind of how it links those together in teams. And I actually think it's extremely powerful. I appreciate you kind of using us as the case study and kind of showing how that is. And I think we all took the PI, and I think that's generally, it comes up pretty close to how we see each other. So I think these extra tools that are out there now just kind of help show reactions would be very helpful for project delivery teams and kind of new teams that we're forming all the time. It kind of is a know yourself, kind of know your team type thing. I think it's a great tool. So thanks for sharing. Over.
Yeah, no worries. I'm hoping, I'm glad that I was able to provide value to the team moving forward, and the leadership development program that you guys are pulling together and have executed here in the last year or two. I think it's an exciting development for SAME in that there's an element of the young professionals that you can really target and help, and SAME can bring value to the membership at large. So I appreciate the feedback, and Mike, thanks also for taking the exam or the behavioral assessment a second time. All right, so last call for any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to bring something up. Yeah, great job. Yeah, I think you nailed it. What's really interesting, and Eric touched on this when he said we're a volunteer organization. It's important that we are scattered across the two quadrants, in particular the one dealing with results. Luckily, we've got the right people focused on results. Mike and Eric are focused on the results. But ultimately, in SAME, as in volunteer, even at the post level, when it stops being fun, people quit showing up. And a couple years ago, one of the service chiefs at JETC, someone asked, hey, what can we do to make your junior officers attend SME and be more active, and he said, hey, if there's value in it, and I'll tell them, if you see value, here's what it might be, but I'm not going to order anybody. And, I'm coming from a military person who's used to giving a lot of orders. He could have snapped his fingers and got everybody on board. But he realized what our culture is as a volunteer organization. And I think Roland, you correctly identified the way forward. So this is a great tool, Dan. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that I was able to engage with you guys here and again, provide value to the organization at large. So we're right at the top of the hour. Last call, Roland, I see you're coming off of mute. Do you have any kind of last words here?
Yeah, I'll summarize or I'll tie this up a little bit. First off, Vhance, thanks so much for joining us and for pulling this great presentation together. This is a topic that a lot of us have spoken about, and I think all of us have taken Myers-Briggs or the DCS or the DISC or a bunch of other tools, and I think that's great. This tool is hopefully has shown each of us a little bit of something that maybe we didn't see before, and I particularly appreciate how it ties the individual assessment to the group assessment to the team's objectives. And so and that there's some quantitative analytical piece to that. So I appreciate that. And like everything else, it's the objective truth is out there, and this is one tool that kind of helps you look at the universe as it is. And I know I've seen a handful of things that I didn't see before having this conversation. So thanks for joining us today, and for everybody else, thanks for calling in, and have a great rest of the month of December. And I'll take some chair privilege here, and I'll say go Navy, beat Army. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.